Jason Schreier has a new report about Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. This comes from Wesley Inpool at IGN.
I do want to shout out Jason Schreier at Bloomberg. I pulled it from IGN because IGN's story is more condensed, which makes it better for reading on the show. Jason Schreier's report was a lot more detailed. And so if you want the full details, go over to Bloomberg, give Jason Schreier the click.
Required reading. Let's do it. Jason Schreier, the homie. A report into the making of $200 million flop Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League has shed new light on Rocksteady's troubled live service shooter, as well as what's next for the studio. Bloomberg spoke to a number of sources who revealed how Rocksteady went from working on an original multiplayer game codenamed Stones to a live service Suicide Squad game amid what was described internally as a culture of, quote, toxic positivity that, quote, discouraged criticism. The original plan was to release Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League in 2019 or 2020, but a number of development issues over the years, as well as Rocksteady's lack of live service and multiplayer expertise, combined to cause the game to suffer significant delays. Bloomberg said that despite Suicide Squad's clear failings as Warner Brothers and Rocksteady chased the volatile live service trend, management would insist everything would come together eventually. According to Bloomberg, Warner Brothers executives had told Rocksteady staff they expected Suicide Squad to become a billion-dollar franchise. Clearly, it did not.
Billion with a B.
What happens next? According to Bloomberg, Rocksteady staff were told in February 2024 the company was understaffed compared to other video game publishers, suggesting job cuts are not on the way. Many staff at Rocksteady are now said to be working on a director's cut version of Warner Brothers' blockbuster video game Hogwarts Legacy, while studio leadership pitches a new single-player game, quote, which would return Rocksteady to its roots. Warner Brothers did not comment on the report. Blessing. Very interesting here.
Wild. It's weird to think that in 2024, we've come around to a place where Rocksteady is working support for a game that was developed by Avalanche. That's crazy, right?
You're right, man. To think about it that way.
Think about where we're at when, I think it was 2015, where Batman Arkham Knight launched.
Yeah.
To think that this studio, Rocksteady, one of the most, I'll say at the time, cherished single-player action adventure developers. Hey, 9 years from now, they're going to be working support on an Avalanche. And that's nothing against Avalanche. Avalanche, also a very talented studio.
In terms of status of those studios.
This is how we talk. It's like talking about like Naughty Dog 9 years from now working support for like a Sucker Punch. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
Both talented studios, but wow, like it's kind of crazy that we've come here. Obviously, I think the way that this story is panned out, there are a lot of parallels with stories we've heard in the past. You know, I think Anthem was the one where they talked a lot about the BioWare magic. Oh, it'll come together. You know, we are BioWare. We got the BioWare magic. Don't worry, it'll all come together. I think CD Projekt Red had a similar thing, or was, hey, we're CD Projekt Red. We made Witcher. It'll come together. Like this game will come together, and those games did not. Right? I think we're in a similar place as Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League. On top of that, it being this live service thing that we don't see from Rocksteady, we don't associate Rocksteady with. If they came out and it was what it was supposed to be and they nailed it in 2019, 2020, this might be a completely different story of, oh snap, no, they did this live service thing and it's great and it's awesome and it's the new Destiny, but it's superheroes or whatever. Like, we could have gotten there, but I think there's
so many ifs to get you there.
There's so many ifs to get you there.
Would have had to change.
And the big red flags here are the toxic positivity that discouraged criticism from higher ups. Hey, like the people working on the game, I feel like more often than not in video game development, they understand what they're working with. They know the quality of what they're working on. I know there's also the thing of we're working on something so long that you start to lose, like, is it good? Is it not good? But like, I don't think that you are a dev working on Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League, and you don't see the flaws. And I fully believe that, yeah, those, based on the story, the flaws were communicated and higher ups are just like, it'll come together. Listen, got a lot riding on this. We think this is gonna be $1 billion franchise, so it's got to come together, right? Like, that is unfortunate to hear how this came about, and it's also unfortunate just because we've heard this story before multiple times.
This episode of Kinda Funny is brought to you by Punkle, the developers behind Vampire Survivors. Did you know that Vampire Survivors is out on just about everything? That's right, you can play it this very second on PC, Xbox, Switch, and mobile. And if that wasn't enough, it's coming to PlayStation this summer with a Platinum Trophy, and I just so happen to be stoked. Why? Because it's awesome! Vampire Survivors is a gothic horror casual game with roguelike elements where your choices can allow you to quickly snowball against the hundreds of monsters that get thrown at you. Mow down thousands of night creatures and survive until dawn. Pick your character, spend your gold on power-ups, and get to being the bullet hell in the game that features absolutely zero vampires. Ponko even just released the new DLC Operation Guns featuring the classic and timeless Konami IP, Contra. We've been talking about this game for years, so there's no reason not to support it now. It's as affordable as a cup of coffee. Get Vampire Survivors on your platform of choice this very second, and thank Ponko for sponsoring Kinda Funny.
I mean, it's one of those things where it's not even fun to say "I told you so" with these type of stories. Like, and them saying that suggesting job cuts are not in the way, that's surprising, right? Like that, something about this math doesn't math to me. Where it's like, how are you going to tell me that you were planning on this thing being $1 billion franchise and it isn't? And not only is it not, it's like super not even close. And like they're talking about like a $200 million flop. Like, games can't be doing that these days, especially the type of games that are being created to then just generate insane amounts of revenue. And when they don't do that, it's like I struggle to believe that this is going to hold water for the next couple of years.
Yeah, I think the layoff part is concerning for everything you just said. The only things that give me hope are two things. One, the leadership being in a place where they're pitching a new single player game to get back to Rocksteady's roots. It's like, okay, that is what we want to hear. But then on top of that, them doing the support for Hogwarts Legacy, which was a game that exceeded expectations like tenfold for WB. I think that probably makes up for probably quite a bit of the revenue they lost for Suicide Squad. Not all of it, obviously.
That's a good point, but I do think that, especially when you look at Warner Brothers as a whole and the decisions that they've been making, the trends that we were seeing with them, like, I do struggle to see them doubling down on teams or IP and stuff that's just not working.
Yeah.
And so it's like, to me, it's like, all right, cool. So is this Rocksteady single player project ever going to see the light of day?
What is the IP that's working with? Are we going back to Batman Arkham?
You go back to Batman, right? Like, you go back to what works. And even then, though, like, when do we see that? Like, this by definition is a reset point for development. I mean, we're talking about something that currently doesn't even exist, that may exist in the future, but with the way that these games are made, like, that's not going to be coming out in the next 5 years. You know what I mean? And like, when you start to think about that, it's like Rocksteady I put up there. It's Rocksteady and Retro I put in a very similar category of, they are legendary game developers that put out a kind of just back-to-back bangers and then kind of just went quiet. And went off, and forever it's like, when we're going to see their next game for both of them. And when we got the answer from Rocksteady that finally, after all that wait, after Arkham Knight, it was like, oh, it's going to be Suicide Squad, and it's this live service thing. And then it's been years since even that disappointment.
Yeah.
And now the game's out, and we're now going to reset again. I'm like, I don't know how much faith I have in all of this. Like, I would not be surprised if Warner Brothers drastically changes what Rocksteady looks like.
I mean, I'll do you one further. I don't know if we can ever get back to what Rocksteady ever was, right? Like, if we're talking about this next game being, let's say it's 4 years away. Let's say they hit like a standard 4 to 5 year development cycle on this thing and it comes out. The last success we've seen from Rocksteady is Arkham Knight, right? If we're calling Arkham Knight a success, which I think they would probably call it a success. Yeah. That was 2015. That was 9 years ago. We've gotten Batman games since then, right? We got Gotham Knights last year, 2 years ago, 2022 fall. Yeah, we got right. It must
have been 2 years ago.
It must have been 2 years ago, right? We got Gotham Knights. That wasn't good, right? We're coming off Suicide Squad. 5 years from now, what is Rocksteady in 2029 compared to what Rocksteady was in 2015? Are any of the same people there? Like, do you still have the same sauce? Can you make the same kind of Batman? Yeah, Ship of Theseus. Is the same talent there? Is the same sauce there? Are you able to make a Batman game that gets us back? I would say not even to Arkham Knight, because like, when you're ranking Batman games, and maybe I don't know if Barrett's out there, Barrett wants to bust through the door, but I feel like when you're ranking Batman games, you're probably going City, Asylum, and then Arkham Knight is somewhere middle, if not lower on the list. That might be preference. That might depend on how much you like the Bat Tank. But I think you got to get back to City or Asylum if you really want to get back to like the roots of what makes those games special. And that is just such a long time ago. 5 years from now, too, we're going to be in such a different era than we were in 2011.
I do have a counterpoint, though.
Yeah.
Batman.
That's true. Honestly, that's a good counterpoint.
Yeah, I mean, real talk though. I feel like Batman is the type of IP that like could be rebooted infinitely forever in different mediums, and like they can find something that works for the modern times. And I think that all of that stuff could work. I just have less faith that it's going to happen. I just feel like with where Warner's at, like I just do not see Warner Brothers games in their current iteration putting out a single player game like that, like Batman in 5 years. But I have no idea. We'll have to wait and see.